I had you Friday last day in this room. It's getting very, very hot, so I'm not sure exactly what you remember. But we started a new chapter. It's all about exponents. You're going to learn about the rules about the exponents. The first thing we talked about is just some words you need to get to know, right? This whole thing is called a power. And when you write a number that looks like this, it's called exponential form. So if a question says, hey, can you write this in exponential form? It wants a big number here and a small number here. The big number is called a base. The top number is called an exponent. So it can ask you, hey, can you write this as a power? That's what it wants. Or it may say, hey, can you write this as an exponential form? That's what it wants. Then they may say, hey, can you tell me what this represents? And that's, it's asking for, what is the multiplication for this? So for the multiplication for this, it's like the base, the big number, is what's getting repeated. And how many times it gets repeated? You're told by the exponent. So the 7 gets repeated 3 times. So you have 7 times 7 times 7, and that one was called the repeated multiplication. Okay? So the exponent tells the base to get repeated. Right? All right. Yes.
Oh, I'm just stretching.
All right. Okay, so let's do some practice here. Going over here. If I ask you the word evaluate, what is it asking you to do? Right? What am I asking you to find? Yes. The answer. So if I have 4 exponent 2, right? What's the answer? You guys probably do this in your head. Liam.
16.
Yeah. So it means 4 times 4, which is equal to 16. Now, what I want you to do is maybe just take a moment, grab your calculator out, and practice using the exponent button on your calculator. Right? So using the exponent button, remember each one of you guys' exponent looks slightly different, right? It's not hard for me. My exponent button was an upside down V, so 4 exponent 2, I get 16. So I'll pause for a second and make sure everybody can do that by hand. Okay, now, connections to last year and grade 10. Right? Okay, so now, last year we did area of shapes. And if you had a square or a rectangle, the formula was length times width. Right? So we had 4, if we had 4 in this direction, say 4 centimeters in this direction, and 4 centimeters in this direction, like this, right? You would have done length times width, 4 times 4, and you would have got 16. You guys remember that? Right? But when we did area, we always gave units. So if you're measuring in centimeters, what was the units for area? What would that be? Centimeter and what? I didn't hear the second part. Squared, right? And so the units were centimeters squared. Centimeter and a little 2, right? Now in grade 9, you can know why it has a little 2 floating up in the air. Right? So why is there a little 2 floating up in the air? Because this is 4 centimeters times 4 centimeters. The centimeters is the base. It's getting repeated. How many times is it getting repeated? Twice. So that's why area was always square. Right? It was centimeters squared, feet squared, yards squared. Right? Because that centimeters being repeated twice. Right? And now, Ashalia said squared, which is great. We could say 4 exponent 2 or 4 to the power of 2 here, right? But typically, whenever the number 2 gets used, oh, what are you doing? There we go. Right? It gets used a lot. And so a lot of math formulas has exponent 2, so we do a little shortcut. Just like Ashley said, we say it's squared. So this is read as 4 squared. So a lot of math formulas, a lot of science formula has exponents 2's, read as 4 squared. That's how you pronounce it. Okay? So the next one, 2 to the exponent 3. Evaluate. Is the answer 6? Or is it a different number?
8.
8. So the very common thing is people mistake make these multiply the two numbers together. No, it means 2 times 2 times 2, right? So you go 2 times 2 times 2, and you can use your calculator for that, practice it, it equals 8, okay? And this is a connection to last year as well. So last year when we had 3D shapes, one of the things you were asked to do is find volume. And volume of a square or a rectangular and 3D version of itself was always given by the formula length times width times height, right? So if we had 2 centimeters in this direction and 2 centimeters in this direction and 2 centimeters in this direction, it would have been 2 times 2 times 2, or 2 cubed, which is 8. So very common questions you can get with exponents this year and next year is asking you to find area of shapes and volume of shapes. So you have to memorize that it's length times width and length, or length for area, and length times width times height. So those are the formulas you're just expected to know, right? And since the 2 is repeating 3 times, the centimeter gets repeated 3 times. This is why our units was always cubed. Centimeter times centimeter times centimeter, right? So centimeters cubed or feet cubed. So that's why it was always cubed, and 3 is another special exponent, right? That shows up in a lot of formulas in math. So read that as cubed, right? So this is read as 2 cubed, right? All right. I'm going to give you tons of time to work on your assignment. I don't think we need to do 5 to the exponent 3, but I want to do this next one here. Negative 2 to the exponent 4. Like that. What number is the answer for that? It says evaluate. Yes, Nick?
Negative 8.
It is not negative 8. You multiplied those two numbers together, right? So this is not negative 2 times 4. It's negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2.
That's negative 16.
Would it be negative 16? It's 16 is right.
Wouldn't it be positive?
Would it?
It'd be
It'd be
positive.
16.
2
Yeah.
minus is equal.
So positive 16. Why? Because we have an even amount of negatives, right? So we have a negative here, 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 right? So we have 4 negatives, right? So it's going to be positive. So you're going to have to learn count negatives. If even, then positive, right? I go plus VE for positive. If, right? Or if you have an odd number, right? If odd, then negative, right? Just a little math fact you want to keep memorized and stuff like that, right? So now you have that information. The next question looks very similar. What is the answer for the next one?
I don't know.
And once we're done our notes, and Sean's going to go first, right? What would next one be? You would think it would be the same answer, right? But it's not, right? And here's the bad part. Some of your calculators, if you punch in your calculator, some of your calculators would do this correctly. Some of your calculators would do this incorrectly. So you got to know this, right? So with this one, so the way this works, this is the hardest little part of this unit that students make mistakes, is the exponent tells the base to repeat. The base is whatever is to the left of the exponent. So I have my exponent floating up here, this 4 here, and to the left of it is this number 2. The negative doesn't count. Okay? So what happens is that 4 tells the 2 to repeat, but the negative sign doesn't. So we have a bunch of 2's that repeats 4 times over, but we have a negative that's out front. Or you can put a negative 1. So you can write down negative 1. For that one negative, it doesn't repeat. or you can just put a negative on the first 2, and we have 4 2's that repeat. So this is just a little math grammar thing that you have to memorize. So yeah, answer is still 16, but since we only have one negative, the answer is going to be negative 16. All right, trickiness. Now, if some of you guys punch in this into your calculator, your answer might be negative 16, or some calculators might give positive 16. So some of the calculators have programming glitches. Hopefully yours does it correctly, right? And it's hit and miss, right? All right. So the next one. So, sorry, going back to this one here. This 4 is here. And to the left of the 4 was the bracket, right? So the 4 is telling the bracket to repeat. So the brackets come in pairs. So you have this here. It says, hey, repeat this bracket 4 times. That's why we had negative 2 in brackets repeated 4 times over. And that's why the negative got repeated, because it's inside that bracket. So now let's look at this next one here. Okay. So our exponent is right here. I really don't care what the final number is. I want you to be able to tell me if it's positive or negative. Does this negative sign get repeated? Yeah. The 3 tells us to repeat the brackets. To the left of the bracket, the 3 is this bracket. So the 3 gets repeated. So the bracket gets repeated 3 times, and inside the bracket. All right. So the answer is going to be positive or negative?
Negative.
Negative. All right, so negative something. So what's 4 times 4 times 4? Or 4? 64. So the answer is negative 64. Excellent. Okay. So we're going to do more trickiness. And it's all about in your mind imagining you're able to repeat. Yes, Liam?
Would it both the negatives cancel out and equal positive?
So we want to do like BEDMAS order. So according to BEDMAS is we need to do exponents and brackets before we combine those things together. So let's just, I'm going to put this in different colors. I'm going to do a yellow negative and a blue negative. Okay? So my question to you is, do both negatives repeat? Or does one repeat or none repeat? Which one repeats? The yellow or the blue? The blue. All right, so to the left of the 6. So we have the 6 floating here. To the left of it is the bracket. So the bracket comes in pairs. So the 6 tells us to repeat those brackets. So I'm going to repeat the brackets 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, I'm going to write everything that's inside the brackets. So that was the negative 3, negative 3, negative 3, negative 3, negative 3. Right? But that yellow negative sign, it still needs to be in the final answer. It just doesn't get repeated. So we just have one of them. So you can put one negative out front, or if you want, you can write down -1. Either way, both things are correct answers. Right? So now, if we look across here, how many negatives are there? Is it an even number or an odd number, though?
Even.
Is it even?
Yeah.
Odd. Right? We have 6 blue negatives and 1 yellow negative. Right? So there's 7 of them. So the answer is going to be negative, because it's odd number of negatives. Now, just grab your calculator and go 3 to the exponent 6, and whatever number that is, that's the number we have. Right? Right. So what number would that be? 729. That's it. So the trickiness of here is being very careful in your mind. You know what gets repeated and what doesn't get repeated. Right? So the other hard part is terminology. Right? What does it mean for repeated multiplication? Show me the multiplication you repeated. Power means write it like this, or write an exponential form means write it like this. And just getting used to the words. Right? So just like your notes, we have an assignment booklet, right? So we just finished, it says day 1 notes in the top corner. We're gonna do day 1 assignment. So for the most of my assignments this whole year, and if you were in my class last year, they're just 1 page, or 2 pages long. So you're gonna do those 2 pages, yes, Liam?
Yeah, you're so much, please.
I'll make a list here. You're gonna be the third one here, right?
Can we
There
do this for
is-
somebody? He's out there.
There is a third optional page, and it's an extending page. So if you're in my grade 8 class, if you're in my grade 9 extending is a different field than my grade 8 ones. So my grade 9 extendings are all sort of, for the most part, a preview of grade 10. So it's what we did right now, extended slightly into the beginning of what grade 10 feels like. So there's a big jump between math 9 and math 10. This is sort of to help you to get there. So that third page where it says extending, that is optional. You're not required to do it. So if you've got time, right, you want to challenge yourself, and you're definitely going to go do pre-calculus next year, try that. All right.